There we
Here
go.
we are. It's Life Tree Goes Wild. We think it's number 10, and this is Saturday. It's June 6th. It's great to be together. We often read books separately or jointly together, and I've been reading one by a gentleman called Henry Cloud. He's best known as co author of the book Boundaries, but this one is Nine Things a Leader Must Do.
And what I enjoy in our home here is sometimes when
Yeah.
I'm doing something else, like ironing, and Fred is reading,
Mm-hmm.
he'll share an idea or a thought.
Yeah.
And while I was ironing this week, he shared an illustration that really kind of got my imagination going. And it's from this book, so I'll have him share that.
Yeah, it's in a chapter that Cloud talks about play out the whole movie. Don't get stuck on just one scene. He talks about doing lunch with a good friend of his who was a construction company owner. And he asked him, the friend, how was it going? He said, yeah, this week we've been playing war games. And Henry looked at him and said, yeah, really, right. Tell us more. The guy said, well, we sit around as a leader team and look at possible worst case scenarios that our company may face out ahead and how we plan to handle those. So you and I have been reflecting a little bit, Cheryl, when we ended up in our time in Malawi, where we had served for 4 years, the country of Malawi, one of the great Rift Valley Lakes countries in Africa. As we headed back to the States, we said, well, I think there's three goals I said to you that we need to look at financially. One was to purchase our own home for the first time in our lives.
Right.
Second was to prepare for retirement whenever that might come. And the third one was build a nest egg of savings for unexpected expenses. Seemed reasonable enough. Well, we landed back in the States. It was December of 2005, and actually faced our first unexpected encounter, playing out the whole movie we hadn't anticipated. For 5.5 months, we did not have a job despite sending out resumes.
Right. And I remember one time going to bed and just weeping and saying, I can't live like this any longer.
Right.
We were living with friends at the time that were they were hosting us, and it was a wonderful time of hospitality, and we were so appreciative of that. But we
Yes.
had said to them it might last 6 weeks because we thought, well, we'll land back in ministry in the U.S. quickly as we have in the past, but that didn't unfold.
No, it didn't. In fact, the unexpected happened. Before we even had our first salary, we considered actually purchasing a home because now we were going to plant a church in a community, target community. And so we thought best we buy a home, which we did in good faith, and we were blessed with it.
Right. It was a wonderful home,
Yeah.
wonderful place of hospitality. But then some other things unfolded and life changed. So
Right.
we had to play out the movie again. And that
Yes.
was the other illustration, I believe, that
Yes, thanks for
you,
reminding me. Yeah, let's have a look at what
shared.
Henry says here. No matter how hard the scene itself might seem, or that we might not want to choose it, because it'll get you where you want to go. Choose to play out the whole movie. So you're right. The church plant scenario didn't work out for a number of reasons. We then agreed to take up an assignment in another city. So we attempted to sell our home, as one would normally do, and we even put in an offer on another home in the new city that we were moving to. And unfortunately, it was during the time of the property recession. Markets plummeted, 2006 onwards, and eventually that home did sell. We got out from underneath it,
Right.
March 2011. That's a long story.
So in a very interesting way, all of those goals that you had set, we
Yeah.
had set, we
Yeah.
thought maybe the Lord would help us to achieve,
Yes.
they all fell through. And
Yeah.
what have we learned as a result of that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because now we're in the space where we are with Life Tree Community in the city of Johannesburg, South Africa. We relocated back here in September 2016. We say back here because you and I had grown up in this country, done our schooling, high schooling. Our kids were both born here when we lived here in the 1980s. And yet, about the time that one was beginning to receive questions of us both, like where do you plan to retire? We're still living back in the States. We had no idea,
No.
but we have learned some things.
I think one of the things that I know I have learned through this whole time, actually, maybe my whole life, and that is that as Daniel I believe it's in chapter 5, says that God actually holds our very breath in his hand, and he owns every road we walk
Yes.
on.
Yes.
And that, I believe, has kept us calm
Right.
and steady, and also bold at times when goals that we had planned for, that were legitimate goals to have,
Right.
actually fell through. So back to that illustration about the war games and planning. What actually, in the end, happens when either the plans come to fruition or they don't come to fruition? And I
Right.
think that is what Lifetree community has learned during this time of COVID-19 and the pandemic is, yes, we had plans, but many of those plans were locked down as a result of
Yes.
this worldwide issue that has happened. But today we heard some interesting news from somebody that we met unexpectedly when we first came.
Yeah.
And what has that said to us
Oh,
about
my.
how plans unfold,
Yes.
and in good ways and ways that you have to just know that God is with you?
Our adopted son, as we call him, Clifford, he's a genial, amazing, warm, hospitable human. We first met him, he was in a coffee shop serving coffee where we happened to stop in one day, and then later you went by with some good friends of yours and actually had a lunch meal, and I joined you at the end of that meal, and he said to us at that time, guys, I really need a verse. And what he was referring to was a Bible verse. He said, I've
Right.
been praying, and I feel like my prayers have hit a ceiling. And I think that's a time like we are facing all now, when we wonder, does God really care? In fact, one of our young ladies in our life group, Kanye, who'd be about our adopted son's age, has said a number of her friends are saying and asking her the question, where is God in all of this?
Right.
Well, right before COVID-19 happened, Clifford felt the need to change jobs. He had done amazingly well in that space, serving the public in that coffee shop, made good friends. But a gentleman who'd been a business customer of his coming into the coffee shop, watched him carefully, said, if you would like, I will take you on as my employee. I will train you in a whole new field. It's actually AI, artificial intelligence. And right before COVID lockdown, Clifford actually left his then job and has been in the employment of this gentleman who said, don't worry, texted him in the first week of lockdown, your job is safe, I will pay you, and I will train you. And Clifford just sent me a picture this morning of his corner office space.
So we understand good news happens and
Yes.
bad news happens.
Right.
And
Yeah.
keep going.
I think something else I've learned, life lesson learned, is when we look at the future and it involves taking risks, consider if you don't take the risk and make needed changes that sometimes take you clear out of your comfort zone and away from those that you love. And we've experienced that on numerous occasions, leaving parents in either continent of Africa and the United States, leaving family, adult children who were planning to start family. But always we see the hand of God. And we see that he asks us at times to step through those really difficult scenes and live them out when we're being formed and shaped, that God then takes and uses for the very present. So here in Lifetree Community, of course, in our latest newsletter, June newsletter, talks about that. We've seen digital platforms established and opportunities for Cheryl to complete teaching, of course, at the local college that started in the classroom and now will be completed via video segments and online assignments. So we want to encourage you today. Cheryl, what do you have in closing?
Well, I was reading in James this morning in my devotional reading, and I've been using a little booklet. It's the message, and I love this, the way James writes about having patience. Wait patiently for the master's arrival. You see, farmers do this all the time, waiting for their valuable crops to mature, patiently letting the rain do its slow work. And I think during this time, we've all had to learn that is let's be patient, let's be kind to one another, let's use our tongue to lift others up
Right.
and not tear people down.
Yes.
And I know for me, it's been a rich time to just reflect on God's goodness, His mercy, His care. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, we wish things would change and go back to maybe the way it was. I don't think they will, but there'll be new and fresh ways of serving Him. So God bless you. It's been a
Yes.
little bit longer, our Go Wild, but we have a lot on our hearts and our minds at this time, and we just want to encourage all of you. God bless.
Thank you. See you again soon. Bye-bye.